Jaffe, a resource teacher with the Office of Gifted and Talented. We're going to talk today about ALPs, or Advanced Learning Plans.
Gifted and talented students appear in every subgroup of a population. They are in every ethnic and language group, and they span all socioeconomic groups. Here in Jefferson County Schools, we are working towards identification of gifted and talented students at every school. But identification is only a part of what needs to happen for these students. Meeting their educational needs is an important job that can be accomplished by educators working together. Whether you are a new teacher, new to Jeffco, or a veteran teacher working with ALPs for the first time, this video is especially for you. If you've worked with students with ALPs before, this video will help you see the overall framework for why we handle ALPs and green folders the way we do, and will help you understand more about the whole programming process for gifted and talented students.
The ALP is a record-keeping document kept in a special green folder in the child's cumulative file for monitoring high-potential students through our school system. The ALP recognizes a student's strengths and represents a commitment by teachers to use appropriate accommodations to address those strengths. It functions as a discussion tool for talking about a child's level of instruction, pacing needs, and grouping patterns.
The ALP is closely linked to the Student Profile Form, the official identification document for all Jeffco gifted and talented students. The profile form follows the Jefferson County Schools definition of gifted and talented, which states that those students whose abilities, talents, and potential for accomplishment are exceptional or developmentally advanced, require special provisions to meet their educational needs. Gifted and talented students are capable of high performance, exceptional production, or exceptional learning behavior by virtue of any or a combination of these areas: general or specific intellectual ability, specific academic aptitude, creative or productive thinking, leadership and human relations ability, visual arts, performing arts, spatial or musical abilities, psychomotor abilities. The profile form is the top sheet on one side of the green folder. Underneath it is all the supporting documentation for identification.
I'm going to walk you through an ALP for an elementary student and show you how it correlates with the student profile form. This is the folder for Jane, a second grader. Jane's school screened all first graders last year using the Cognitive Abilities Test, or COGAT. Any one score at the 95th percentile means that a student gets the box for general intellectual ability checked on the student profile form. Test scores alone do not qualify a student to be identified as gifted and talented.
A student needs 3 checked boxes on the profile form to be identified. Other checks besides general intellectual ability can come from areas that correspond with the definition of gifted and talented: academic achievement, creative thinking, leadership, visual or performing arts, or psychomotor ability. Observation checklists by parents or teacher can also be used. Documentation is required for each checked box.
On Jane's profile form, besides the check for her COGAT score, she has checks in leadership, the parent observation scale, and a teacher observation scale in learning. Jane's ALP is based on what her student profile form tells us. On her ALP, verbal and leadership are checked as strength areas. Within the verbal category, there are 2 possible areas: reading and writing. Jane's first grade teacher saw her as strong in reading, but not outstanding in writing, so the verbal reading box is checked. In time, CSAP and other data will let us know if writing is a strength for her. If it is, the verbal writing box will be checked at that time.
On the ALP, as Cindy mentioned, are strength areas of the student, as recognized from the student profile form. Next to the strength area is a goal for the student. This is what the student may accomplish by the end of the year in his or her strength area. The teacher keeps track of how the student is doing on the goal, and at the yearly ALP review, marks whether the goal was met or unmet. Since a copy of the ALP goes home with the parents, they can keep track of the student's progress on the goal too. Secondary students should be held accountable for their own goal attainment. The recommended accommodations beside each strength area are compiled from the latest research in best practices for gifted students. It is the teacher's responsibility to learn, if necessary, and use the strategies to nurture the student's strength areas.
Remember that just because a student has shown potential in an area doesn't mean that he or she will always perform well in that area. A student may show potential in math, for example, by earning a high quantitative score on the COGAT, but may not demonstrate math achievement in class. That doesn't mean the student doesn't deserve or need an ALP.
Many factors contribute to student achievement, some of which we can't control. But it's surprising how much of a student's internal motivation can actually be affected by what goes on in the classroom. It may seem counterintuitive, but pre-testing a student and giving him more challenging work may give him the motivation he needs to begin achieving.
Jane's ALP clearly shows what goals she and her teacher need to work on through the year, as well as which accommodations her teacher can use to help her attain those goals. If the teacher isn't comfortable with how to implement the ALP accommodations, she or he can contact their gifted and talented resource teacher for help, or take advantage of some of the professional development opportunities offered by the Office of Gifted and Talented each year.
Now let's take a look at how ALPs are handled in a secondary school. Each Jefferson County school has a gifted and talented building liaison, a contact person who works with the resource teachers and monitors identified students and their records in the building. With the large staffs in secondary schools, the resource teachers are unable to meet with each teacher individually to do the yearly ALP reviews. The building liaison must assume an active role. Some middle and high schools have chosen to cluster gifted and talented students on a team or with a counselor. That way, fewer people need to be in the loop for meeting needs and documenting progress.
When it's yearly review time, a team of teachers will meet with the building liaison and the resource teacher to discuss how the green folders will be routed. Teachers need to mark whether students have met their goals in their strength areas. Then they must write some specifics about what they have done during the school year to address the strengths of the students. Standardized test scores for that year must also be filled in, often by the building liaison or the counselor. On the secondary ALP, there is room for each of the students' teachers to comment and sign, filling up an entire page for each grade level.
In contrast, the elementary ALP form has room for only the classroom teacher to comment on what she has done and sign it each year. 3 grade levels are included on each form at the elementary level. But But the front page of the ALP, which describes accommodations, is the same for all grade levels. It includes check marks next to the students' documented strength areas, recommended strategies for nurturing those strengths, and boxes to show if student goals were met or unmet for that year.
The most critical use of the ALP at any grade level is to monitor student achievement and help prevent underachievement or dropout. At the secondary level, students are expected to assume responsibility for their role in developing their gifts and talents. Students often meet in small groups or individually with a teacher, building liaison, or counselor to discuss what they can do to nurture their strengths. Through course selection, clubs and activities, or college and career planning. It's important that gifted and talented students who aren't performing academically, who are truant, or who are otherwise at risk have a personal contact with someone at the school who can help them set personal and academic goals to prevent wasted potential.
Teachers find the ALP a useful tool for helping them stay on top of their students with gifted and talented potential. Through the use of this consistent process throughout Jefferson County schools, our district can be accountable to the state for compliance with the laws and rules for accreditation, and to the Office of Civil Rights, which tracks the demographics of our exceptional students.
As a resource teacher, I can help teachers handle the paperwork of identification and documentation. And with my colleagues, I can offer professional development and support around appropriate accommodations for students' different strengths. But only teachers can implement the ALP in their classrooms. Only teachers can provide the differentiated instruction and educational experiences that will help develop a child's talent potential. potential in an area doesn't mean that he or she will always perform well in that area. A student may show potential in math, for example, by earning a high quantitative score on the COGAT, but may not demonstrate math achievement in class. That doesn't mean the student doesn't deserve or need an ALP.
Many factors contribute to student achievement, some of which we can't control. But it's surprising how much of a student's internal motivation can actually be affected by what goes on in the classroom. It may seem counterintuitive, but pre-testing a student and giving him more challenging work may give him the motivation he needs to begin achieving.
Jane's ALP clearly shows what goals she and her teacher need to work on through the year, as well as which accommodations her teacher can use to help her attain those goals. If the teacher isn't comfortable with how to implement the ALP accommodations, she or he can contact their gifted and talented resource teacher for help, or take advantage of some of the professional development opportunities offered by the Office of Gifted and Talented each year.
Now let's take a look at how ALPs are handled in a secondary school. Each Jefferson County school has a gifted and talented building liaison, a contact person who works with the resource teachers and monitors